Friday, December 20th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This morning, I want to talk about the central bankers and the institution of central banking, how they're proving themselves to be total globalists. I know a lot of you knew that already, but we're seeing more and more proofs of that. Of course, the United Nations is the big globalist organization, the League of Nations, which the U.S. didn't want to get into. The U.S. Senate voted against joining the League of Nations after World War I. But then after World War II, of course, didn't have a choice, joined the UN. It was supposed to be an institution that stopped wars. Have wars stopped since then? No. Some of you might know it was John D. Rockefeller Jr., I think, who donated the land in Manhattan to the United Nations for them to build their headquarters there. So the bankers are behind the United Nations. So what's in my mind this morning? Why am I talking about the central banks? Of course, I usually talk very regularly about central banks. My main grievance against central banks is that they're a monopoly, they're anti-free market, anti-competition. Governments give this central bank, wherever they may be, Federal Reserve, Bank of England in the UK, ECB in the European Union, government gives them the monopoly to issue the currency. They give a monopoly to create credit or fiat currency out of thin air. They give them the power to control and manipulate short-term interest rates, but also now longer-term interest rates through more money printing. And it's totally anathema to the free market, to freedom, to competition, the central banking. Central banking and the bank that looks after them, the BIS in Basel, which was created probably also by the same globalists in 1930 to settle World War I reparations, but has stayed around since then, helped the Germans finance World War II. Believe me, you had German officials at the BIS, you had American officials, French, Japanese, Italian, British, all working together during World War II while they're supposed to be fighting a war. So that's the kind of institutions they are. So the BIS and the central banking blueprint is just like the OPEC blueprint. It's a cartel, and no one calls central banking and the BIS a cartel. Of course, they call the OPEC a cartel, but they're just as bad. This morning, I see the headlines here in the FT. They've picked another governor for the Bank of England. Mark Carney is going to leave at the end of the year. They've picked a guy who used to work at the Bank of England and right now is running the FCA, which is the equivalent of the SEC in the US. He's doing a horrible job, of course. You've had the Woodford Fund fail. You've had yesterday the story about the Bank of England providing, and they say it's inadvertently, providing basically a squawk box audio of the press conference after their monetary policy meetings to hedge fund managers. And why is that so bad? Well, because it had an 8-second advance to what was coming out on Bloomberg TV or public TV. An 8-second advance in the financial markets it is almost like a year, knowing a year in advance. It's a lot of time. They must have made billions off front running They knew the information before the public knew it. Bank of England, of course, is saying they didn't know anything about this. So the story from yesterday in the FT as well, it says FCA. So the guy who is heading the FCA right now is gonna run the Bank of England. I wonder if they're gonna find anything wrong with the Bank of England. So it says FCA probes early audio streams of Bank of England press conferences. So that's what was happening there. So now the guy who is running the FCA, who are going to investigate the Bank of England, he's going to be the governor of the Bank of England. So Bailey selected. FCA chief beats rivals to succeed Carney as candidates. Views on Brexit prove key factor. So the other reason I spoke about the UN and why central banks are globalist institution is this story here. Underneath the main headline about the governor, it says, Mark Carney to become UN climate envoy. So you can see what they're doing here. They're putting together the monetary system, the climate. Bank of England came out a couple of days ago with this new stress test for climate risk for the banks, which is a joke, in my opinion. The biggest risk to the banking system is not climate change. The biggest risk is the fractional reserve system that we have. The fact that the Bank of England and its agent banks are able to create money out of thin air. I'm not saying the environment shouldn't be looked after, but all this talk about climate extinction, climate risk, this is all baloney. In my opinion. So now you have not only Mark Carney, but also the ECB, the Bank of England now, they're putting together the climate situation and the monetary system. And why do they want to do that? Because they want more and more control of you. They want more and more control of your money. They want more and more taxes extracted from you, not like they don't already extract so much tax from the economy. I was thinking the other day, because our car had its annual service and there was quite a big problem with the car. We had to leave it in the garage to get fixed, and was quite a big bill, unfortunately. And then you look at the receipt, and 20% of that goes to the government. It's called value added tax, which is a scam. Many people were criticizing Jeremy Corbyn, who wanted to nationalize a lot of companies here in the UK if he had won the election. I'm not pro Jeremy Corbyn. All I'm saying is VAT is basically de facto the government owning 20% of every company in the UK. Every company that pays VAT, if they do business, 20% of their revenues, gross revenues, go to the government. So we are already under state ownership, 20%, I would say, with this VAT regime. So now these central bankers, the politicians that work for them, they want more and more control of you, and they're using this climate scare and engineered crisis to gain more and more control of you. And Mark Carney, I thought he'd run back to Canada or maybe even Brazil, because there's no extradition treaty in Brazil. But don't hold your breath about this Bank of England scandal of front running. Basically, that's what they're doing. The hedge funds, they're front running. Of course, the Bank of England is denying any knowledge. But do you really believe police is going to be involved in this? People are going to be arrested? Mark Carney is going to be questioned? No. Don't hold your breath. They own, unfortunately, almost everything now, and they own almost everyone in all facets of the state, of society, unfortunately. What's the way for us to fight central bankers and the system? I've said in the past, dealing with them as little as possible. If you're fortunate enough to have fiat currency savings, transfer or exchange that for real money, physical gold and silver. Keep it out of the system. Try also cryptocurrencies is out of their system. But I would say precious metals has a better track record. That's the way to fight them. Become your own central banker. As my mug here says, it's got a sovereign. Keep stacking. And then on the other side, don't get caught holding the bag. There's a Silver Britannia. Just have a sip of my coffee. And I'd like to thank a lot of you that have bought the merchandise in the Maneco 64 store. I've got all other kinds of mugs. We got Billy Silverbug mugs. We got t-shirts, stickers, and the Fed mugs. Shut down the Bank of England mugs. And right now there's a 20% discount until the end of the year. So there you go. Central banking showing their colors, the central bankers. But there is a way to fight it. It's a lonely fight, but in my opinion, it's a fight worth fighting. If you know the truth of this system and how it works, I can't see myself supporting a system like this. I know it's a lonely fight, but can't give up. So now let's look at the markets this morning, see where they are. It's 8:16 a.m. London. Of course, the stock market continued to go higher yesterday. Had more talk about the trade deal. I think Mnuchin said they're close to signing the first phase in January. It was supposed to have been signed December 15th. It's not even the whole deal. It's now the first phase. How many phases are they going to have? The Dow was up 137. So we made new all-time highs, which is not surprising at the moment. This morning, we've got spot gold down $1 here at 1477.70. We did almost break out of that falling wedge yesterday. We're very close. It's around 1481. The high yesterday, I think, was around 1482. So gold and silver have remained quite firm. Of course, they're not going anywhere at the moment, but I expect them to start moving soon. Silver right now is unchanged at 1706. The Dow future is unchanged this morning. S&P 500 is down a point. NASDAQ 100 future is down 3.5. The pound continued to correct lower yesterday. It's risen back slightly. Right now is just above 130 at 130.20. I think the pound or cable looks like it could go lower. Euro slipped back a little bit yesterday. Right now it's unchanged, 111.19. The dollar is stable versus the yen, 109.35. Dollar also holding around 7 against the yuan at the moment. Oil yesterday moved higher. I think the high in WTI was around 61.30 or 50. I'm not sure exactly. Right now it's at 61.11. Brent is at $66. So both are up slightly. So they're continuing to go higher, the commodities, especially the energy sector. Bond market, you would have expected, of course, the 10-year yield to have gone up yesterday and bonds to drop, with the stock market going up quite a bit. But it actually is pretty much where we left off yesterday. It's at 193. It's actually up 2 basis points overnight. So it's very strange. Yesterday, actually, bond yields dropped 2 basis points with the stock market making new all-time highs. So it shows to me there's someone there, maybe in the central banking world, in the Fed, New York Fed, or the banks, buying these bonds. Who knows? Have they started QE on the long end yet? They could very well do it. There's some people who argue the Fed is doing even more than the hundreds of billions of repo and QE right now, that they're doing trillions. And that's not out of the realms of possibility because the Fed has never been audited. So my message for the day, keep fighting against the central banks. keep fighting against their phony currency. Try to deal as little as possible with the bankers. Try to live within your means. Try not to borrow what you don't need to borrow. Try not to spend what you don't need to spend, because that's how they keep you on the treadmill, so to speak, of this debt-based system. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Please share this video far and wide, and you can also follow me on Twitter, BitChute, DTube, and Steemit. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.